This is like a subject that a lot of people ask to see, how to tie a parachute. Um, and like anything in fly tying, there are several different ways to tie a fly. I'm going to go over two ways that I like. One tying the hackle to the post, and the other tying the hackle to the shank. And a different materials that I like to use for the post, and I'll go over those when I start. Uh, a lot of people, it depends on. I like to go by feel when the post for the post, but usually it's a good thing to get a decent thickness, and usually it's all everything is based by the hook itself. So I'll go into that. Um, how sometimes you can use a UV resin to secure it and reinforce your wraps that are on the post. But you got to be real careful with UV resins, because too much, that fly's not going to float. It's going to end up sinking because you've added a lot of weight to the wing post. So those are things you have to consider when you want to use UV resin for that. Also, I know some tires like to reinforce the post with a little UV resin to get it stiff, or glue to begin with, to get a nice stiff post. So when they wrap the hackle, it doesn't pull the post and bend it. But that's another thing. Like I said, it's a basic feel on when to pull tight and when to do it loose. So hopefully I could show you that and pass that information through. I have 8 o'clock now. We have 13 people, 50 something people signed up. So I like to thank everybody that signed on time. So I'd like to get started with some of the materials used for the post. So as you can see, I have laid out materials using the calf tail is a good way, but a lot of people get upset with how it crinkles here, but that's not a problem. When you're going through and rooting for these, make sure you find a nice straight one. White is usually the basic. You can go into a yellow, orange if you can get orange dyed calf tails. On smaller flies, and this is really great, is the calf body here. And I know a couple of tires you get this in orange, but don't rule out black either, because black on sunny days that reflect a lot of light on the water will show up a lot better on the water. I also you can use a poly yarn, even Antron yarn, by doubling it up, getting a nice thickness for it. So think of it as a nice strike indicator, using a parachute as your fly, and using a dry dropper method. And then there is a white. You can even go to white poly yarn, which works pretty well also. Other materials that I really like to use are CDC feathers. But now you got to learn how to. I take about 3 or 4 and I line up the tips. Stroke them together, and I'll form a nice post of the gray dun colors. So those are like the materials I use for the wing post itself. Anybody have any questions before I start the tying? Because then I'm gonna have to show the different directions on tying. But no questions? Okay, we can get started then. I got a size 14 put into the vise. And first thing is I'm going to tie a Cahill type pattern. I locked it. I'll tie right behind the eye. I'll lay some thread on the hook shank to give a base so that the materials don't slip when tying. First, I'm going to tie with the calf tail. I'll show you what I'm doing there. So I'm going to take get a decent thickness. And I'm going to get them where they're nice and straight. And this one happens to be more towards the base. Cut it close to the butt of the tail itself. I'm going to take all these fluffy, fuzzy underfur from the tail. And then I'm going to stack them. And I pull out the tips. So now I got, this is more than I really need, but you'll see what I'm going to do on the hook. So I would basically measure them, but first, before I do that, I want to show you that if you twist them, this is about 2 times the thickness of the wire of the hook. So that's going to make a decent post. So just take out some of the strays. I'm going to line it up. It's going to be the length of the hook. I'm targeting for about 2/3 of the way from the bend, or 1/3 from the eye of the hook. So I measure it. It's the length and shank of the shank. I will move my my hair to the tie-in point, and then I will put a loose wrap, pull tight. This is called a pinch loop method, in between the thumb and index finger. Secure that in place. Lift it up and then put a jam knot in front so that the wing will stand up. I'm going to get rid of all this butt material. You could either cut it at an angle or cut it close. If you cut it at an angle, it'll help with the tapering. But here's what I like to do. Whenever you're tying with hair wings, I try to add a nice base of thread. So I have a nice base of thread, and so that when I wrap the hackle, it will this will hold the hackle and will bend less when I do pull it. So I'm going to take a done hackle feather, and I'm going to prepare it just like we do with other dry flies. I'm going to take out the webby part. Now this one I'm going to tie on to the shank of the hook. I'm going to put the feather on the near side of me against the post, laying it flat So the shiny side of the feather is up, dull side down. So it's got a curve like this, so that when this is wrapped and fully wrapped and you're fishing it, that curve will help keep it down and almost flush to the water. So I'm just going to secure that behind the post, but I'm also going to lift this up because as I'm wrapping this, I'm going to go around and each wrap is going to be underneath it. So by elevating it up, it'll give me more room to wrap more wraps of the hackle. So I'm going to trim this butt section off, the stem off. And now I'm going to bring my thread to the bend of the barb of the hook. That's why I didn't knock it off. So I didn't compress it. So you know where the bend of the hook is because it's lined up with the barb of the hook. I'm going to take some tailing material. I'm going to take some barbs from the longer side of the feather, hackle feather. This is going to be my tail. And I am going to get about 10 to 15. Get a good amount. Let me get this out. And I like to cut them instead of pull so that they stay lined up in my fingers. So the tail is going to be as long as the shank of the hook, from the bend to right behind the eye. I'm going to switch hands so that I could tie it in at the correct point. I'm going to trim some of these X length off. Lay it right where I'm going to tie it in. Put a wrap in between my thumb and index finger. Pull up. So I'm basically a loop pinch method. Hold it in place. Lock the feather in. Lock the fibers in, and there. One other trick that you could actually do, and that is put a wrap right underneath the tail, which will help it stay up a little higher or straighter. So that's one other trick you can do. Put it right underneath, pull up, and that'll help keep the tail in place. So I'm going to use a cream color or PMD color to finish to do this body. So this is natural fur. Trick of all dubbing, as always, is least is best. So you basically could see through what I'm doing, the fur. And I just twist it on and it'll slide a lot easier going up the thread as I get near the body. I'm going to start off with a little bit. Keep it small, keep it light. Hold the tail in the first wrap. And then we will gradually build a taper to right behind the wing. If you have questions at any time while I'm doing this, please don't hesitate.
Jerry, we have no questions because you're being so clear.
Thank you. You know, it's like please help, I tried to give as much an explanation as possible. And I'm going right behind the wing. And then a little bit, I'm going to go in front of the wing a bit so that the right under the wing is covered. So I'm going to, so that's covered so I don't have any gap there. Now, this is one of the ways I first learned with with the Casco tires when they did this, wrapping it, going away from your body and around the post, away. Next wrap is underneath. Now I'm gonna as I'm talking, the tightness I tighten it as I get towards the bend. I'm tightening, it gets tighter. I tighten it up as it's like right pointing towards my body. I usually go a little loose. I'll release some of the tension, but as soon as I get here, I get tight. And the reason is if I ended up going tight all the way around, this is what's going to happen. It'll do that on you. It'll pull off. And then you're going to get aggravated. Then you're never going to want to tie these things again. You're going to twist, you're going to twist the hackle. So the object is start off loose going this way, but tight as you get towards from the bend to you. See, now I'm doing it. Just gonna unravel the hackle. But I wanted to show you that that's what happens when you just come on, there, a little more. And then I pull here. Other times you could hold the wing and do it. If you want, you can buy a spring thing that comes over the top. I know a lot of vise manufacturers you do that. Just another tool to use. So I wrapped a good 4 or 5 times around that. Now I got this feather. I'm going to hold it below the below. But the other reason why it's wrapped that way is that when the thread goes, you see how the hackle fibers just fold out of your way as you get ready to secure it? All right, you see that? That's why it was done in this direction, to tie onto the shank of the hook. It folds the feathers out of the way. So now I got 2 good wraps on there. I can now cut that off. Now what happens is I got to put more fur in front of it. More dubbing fur. Nice tight dubbing fur. I'm going to hold the hackle out of the way, and I'm going to continue building the body. That's probably more than enough. Pick it up. And now I could whip finish that. Once again, the hackle moves basically out of the way. You will trap a few, but it moves out of your way. Secure, secure, and cut. And like I said, you'll have a few that get caught. So you just go in there and just trim that out of there. See which ones are in your way. The other thing, and I'll do it here. Take some head cement. Put it right at the base of the wing, and the liquid will, by capillary motion, will flow down and then lock into the wraps. So that is tying it, securing it to the wing post. Any questions?
No question, but that was a great tip about hitting the top of that post with the head cement.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's like capillary mode. When you take a little bit of blood, when you see them take blood work, and they use those very thin tubes, they don't have to suck it up. It just travels through it. That happens the same way. And you could also use a bone dry, which is UV resin from, and I'm gonna use, because I don't know of anybody that makes it even thinner, from Solaries, but this little drop, and I'm telling you, that little drop will suck down in there. So that's, and you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to make a mistake, because if you put too much, it just creates too much, and then it creates too much weight and will drag the fly down. So that's another thing you could do, and that's not going to come apart.
Could you do the glue or the head cement before you wrap the hackle in to make it easier so it doesn't get all on the hackle?
Well, that's another way. There are people that'll actually glue the post first and then wrap the hackle and secure it. That could be a mess, but it can be done. It's one other way. That's like I used to teach like 3 different ways of tying it, and the third way was wrap the hackle, put a drop of which we'll call it Solaries, and then light it up, and then it would lock it in place. You didn't even have to use the thread to hold it in place. There are so many ways of doing it. It's not funny, Did that help with your question? I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just trying to figure out different best methods.
There's no such thing as a best method. It's the method that works for you. All right. I like to put the drop of head cement right at the wing and let it soak in. I don't like to have too much glue around. One of the things I'm not a fan of is like Zap-A-Gap, because it gets into everything. So we did it with the calf tail.
I have used that adhesive method on the post prior to putting the hackle on.
Yeah.
And it helps, it stiffens it up. So it's so much easier for me to apply the hackle.
I had one that I overdid it. And this is why I really make sure that you don't overdo it. I put too much on
goes a long way, right?
Yeah, I put too much on one. When I went to fish it this weekend, the fly sank. And I'm like, boy, was that a sloppy mess to do that. And then, you're excited to use it, and then all of a sudden it's unusable. All righty. So now I'm going to do it with the poly yarn. Lots of people like to use the poly yarn. Number one, you don't have to worry as much with the measurements. Poly yarn is, if you made it too long on the top, you could just cut it to your length. Get a little bit of poly yarn. This is actually Antron yarn that I'm using here. I wrapped that orange over itself so many times, so I'm going to see. It's a little thick, but it'll work. Just take a while. You know, I will measure it and move it to where I need to, secure it in place. Poly yarn is a lot easier to use, work with. Antron yarn, poly yarn. Same method. Put a couple of wraps around the post. Really make that secure in there. Want to make it look like a little bit of a wing. Just go right in and colors. This is a great color on water. You can see it. It's a great strike indicator by tying a dropper pattern onto it. So this one I'm going to attach to the wing post. You're going to see the direction that this goes in. Remember, this way the hackle went away from me, towards me. This side, the pole is going to go towards me and away. So it's going the opposite direction. So I'm going on the far side of the wing, secured the same exact way before as I did before. Make sure that's in there. Lift it up and secure it to the wing. And I twisted it. That's out of my way. Now I'll put the tail in, measure it, tie it in. Throw a loop underneath. Nice and secure. Start to dub the body. Here we go. Now I'm going to dub, when I dub the body, you're going to see that I'm not going to be whip finishing by the eye. Come on, it's gotta be tighter than that. I'm gonna go behind the wing and let it hang over. So the body's all dubbed.
And you don't wax your thread, right?
No. And I'm rushing when I would have tightened that up. Usually I just have to wet my fingers with either saliva or run it across my the bridge of my nose or like that. So now the hackle. When you wrap this, you're wrapping it away and then towards. Each wrap underneath, away and towards, away and towards. Now I got the feather, the hackle, and I'm holding it towards the bend of the hook. I'm going to take my thread. I'm going to drop this below the shank. I'm going to run the thread underneath the hackle. So now this is secure. I can go in here and now cut it. That's nice and secure now. And you're probably going, all right, what's next? I'm going to take my whip finisher. I'm going to back this up just a bit so you see what I'm doing. A lot of guys I've seen will take the fly out and have it pointing up and down. And they're going to whip finish as if this whip finish tool was doing it to the eye of the hook. I like to ask them when they thought of that, if they're using a hammer, do they turn the wall of their house around so that they can hammer in that direction, or should you learn how to use your tool to do the work? So I figured you should learn how to use your tool to do the work. So here it is. I got the whip finish, and I just rotate it underneath all of those wraps of the hackle, and then let it slide right underneath. Okay? And then I can cut it. That takes care of that. And again, take a drop. That'll slide right down. And that is a nice high visible fly on the water. All right. Any questions?
No questions.
Wow, that's
Brilliant fly.
thank you. All right. All righty, here comes using the CDC as the wing. So I got these CDC feathers, and they're dyed in orange. So that's a positive right there, so I could see them. Plus, they float pretty high, but they are not easy to wrap a hackle around. Okay. So I layered at least four feathers together. That's a size 14 hook. Going to measure that out to be the length of the shank of the hook. One more measurement, move. Okay, good. Just making sure it's in the right spot. All right. Nice wing dam, red dam in front of the wing.
So can I ask a question about
Yes.
CDC?
Yes, sure.
I've been leery about dyed CDC. I assume then that you've got the confidence it doesn't change the flotation properties.
I haven't seen a problem with it. And I got this stuff from Great Britain. I kind of thought the same thing, but if you want to really think, maybe I'm not worried about the flotation at this point for this. It's just that it's lighter, number one, even though I have like 4 feathers on there. Okay. It compresses nicely. That's a really nice compression wrap for making a post. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Well, and it is the post, right? So if it's in the water,
it's
you're doing something wrong with your cast.
right. So that's really, it just made it, to me, it made it lighter. It made it lighter than the hair. It made it lighter than the poly yarn. And it kind of looks nice. So I'm going to take 2 hackles, brown and the grizzly. This was a great fly over the weekend. Let me tell you that.
Where were you fishing in North Carolina, Jerry?
Cherokee Indian Reservation.
I envy you.
I got down there. I was with Gene Barrington, and Gene's only lives about a couple hours away from there, from Atlanta area. So he met me there. We were doing a tying demo for Southeastern Conference Council, and then on Sunday we fished it, and I'll tell you, it wasn't. You would think it'd be easy. When you see them from the bridge and looking down on the water's gin clear, water's extremely cold. Get there and we're watching them, and 2 of them start to porpoise. So they weren't really taking dries; they were taking the underneath some sort of either a drowned spinner from the night before of a hatch, or some sort of an emerger. There was a lot of garbage coming up. I couldn't tell. It was really small. So tying the Adams on with this orange post was great to see the fly, and then tying a dropper off it, a black of all things, a black pheasant tail beadhead wet fly, and was starting to, if I didn't catch him on the dry, I caught him on that. So it was really cool to see. And then I went into upper pocket water and was catching native browns. So it was pretty cool to be there and see that. So what I did was, remember, I tied just like we did with the other one, because I'm going to tie this on the post, tied to the far side. I'm not a big, for me, I like to tie 1 hackle at a time. So when we get there, you'll see. That's how I'll do it. So now I'll get to where the tail is. Okay. So what I did was took the grizzly and I put it into a medical clamp. Now I'm going to take the brown because I have more than that. That's not a lot. I like to have a nice stiff tail to help, like a rudder on the fly. And then I'll line up the tips, compress them in my hand, and just do a twist. And that mixes the brown and the grizzly together. So now I'll measure it, length of the shank of the hook. Measure one more time. Come on. No, don't you dare. All right, so we got the tail in. Let's put a little muskrat on there. It's again very small amount. Don't be afraid to use a black wing also, or take the poly yarn, take a strand of white and a strand of or a strand of chartreuse and a strand of white, or a strand of chartreuse and a strand of orange to make a nice post so that you can see the fly. Because honestly, they don't see this post of the fish. This is on top of the water.
You've actually inspired me to tie this in yellow for some of our giant hexagenia that we get in Washington State, just off of Mount St. Helens.
Nice. Tell me how it works out when you do it. But you'll be able to see them, you know. Just to make sure that it's covered under the bottom. That's the most important part. That's what the fish see. I'm going to take the bottom feather and I'm going to wrap that one. CDC is a little easier for it to bend on you, so I like to use kid gloves on it. Rotating hackle pliers work great for this, except right now the ones that I have, the rubber just lets it slip off, so I'm too lazy to go fix it. And I'll secure that one in place. And I'll take the grizzly. As I'm wrapping it, I'm up and down, so that they mix. Secure that one in place. We'll finish it.
Tell us about your cutting tool.
Unfortunately, they don't make them anymore. That's the sad thing. A lot of the people at Thai now, like that do videos, they did they took that tool and they sharpened the edge. They grounded it down. So the Mattarelli that was making that stopped doing it because nobody was buying it. They were all grinding it up themselves. But this when they came out, it was I can remove and put a new cutting blade in there for that. But all right. And as you can see, it's and the same thing. You put a drop. I would use head cement on this. And that will slide right down and take care of it.
What's your favorite head cement?
I honestly, I've been using Rumpf. When that came out, I got like two jars of this that I've had for a long time, and it hasn't hardened on me, so I still use it. So that's the Adams, and that is probably the most popular parachute pattern out there. Now we get into a funny looking hook. All right, that's a clink hammer hook. Extremely effective pattern. It's like an emerger with a dry fly. So with clink hammers, there's so many variations of it. You could add a tail of antron out the back. This part will go underwater from here to here. This part will float on top. So it's an emerger type pattern. So the wing should only be about from where the hook point lines up for the bend. The barb still lines up right here for the bend of the hook, so it's going to go from here to here. So your wing is going to be from the behind the eye to right where the barb is. Going to move it into the tying position, almost a little more 1/3, 2/3, 1/3 back from the eye, and lock this into place.
Can you repeat the hook you use for these?
This is a clink hammer hook. It's actually a clink hammer designed by Hans van Klinken for this pattern. If you don't have that, a regular scud hook works fine. It's just that he's got a sharper bend and the hook point is up up more. That's the difference between that and the scud hook. This pattern has saved my butt from being skunked many times.
I have to agree with you, Jerry. This has saved so many trips.
And I don't like being skunked. It really destroys my ego.
You get used to being skunked, Jerry.
Yeah, I know. Like this weekend, I was grateful I didn't get skunked. Oh, after being down there, beautiful area. I prefer tying the hackle to the wing post. That's been my preference these days.
It helps stiffen it, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I'm gonna bring my thread to the bend, the line up where the barb is. And I'm gonna take some fur dubbing material. Why I don't use wax, because that thing slides right up there.
Well,
Wax.
I don't feel so guilty about not using wax myself, seeing you do it also.
Like if you talk to some others, Al Ritt also doesn't use wax, and his thing about not using wax is because it changes the color of the dubbing material. He goes, he's another one. Try to get used to not using it. There are so many ways of getting it on there. Just wet your thumb and index finger. That'll help. Or there is times I do use wax, and it's for like dubbing touch method, where you put the wax on and just placing the dubbing on the thread and then wrap it so it's not secure really to the thread. But as you wrap it onto the hook shank, it locks it down, but they're all spiky and spirally. It's almost like a quick dubbing loop. Alrighty.
Do you ever add a little trailing shuck?
Yeah, yes, I have. I'm tying directly from a pattern from an English book. Yeah, I have put Antron yarn right out the back, whether it be a dun color, clear color, or to match the nymph or a brown. That makes a big difference. So now I'm going to do that's the abdomen. Now I'm going to do the thorax. All right. I'm going to take some peacock curl. I'm going to make a rope out of that.
So we don't see that. How many strands are you using?
I'm using 4 strands. See it? Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to tie them in by the tip. I'm gonna hang it down. I'm just gonna make a rope out of it. Just like dubbing material, I just keep making sure it get to the eye, come back, just like I did with the dubbing material in front of the wing. Now I can basically just want to make sure that it's uniform underneath. This is already nice and secure. Now I'll take my whip finisher. My hackle pliers. Oops. Yeah, the British are heavily into using CDC for the wing posts for their parachutes. All righty.
Jerry, do you use Fish on Productions to buy your CDC?
Excuse me?
Do you use the company Fish on Productions in Great Britain to buy your CDC?
I'm using Coons Hill Fly Time.
Cooks Hill, okay. Because I've
And
been
it's-
getting from a company over there called Fish on Productions.
Oh, okay. As soon as I bought other stuff from him, that's why when I saw that he had the CDC, a couple of things that the reason why I bought real quick, the pound dropped to almost equal
Mhm.
what the dollar is,
Yep.
and
mhm.
shipping was only $5 from the United Kingdom.
Mm.
So, and he's got other feathers that I
Okay.
like European blue jay, which is not a protected bird in the United Kingdom, nor is it protected here since it's more of a pest over there. It's not the blue jay that we have in our backyards here. Okay. Let me just see. Got one feather that's got caught. There. All right. So that's what it looks like after you're done.
Nice fly. Can't wait to fish it.
You gotta fish it. You gotta fish it. That fly's a lifesaver. It does what I want. When there's nothing rising for some reason on the West Branch, tied in the Cahill colors for the summer, boom, they come up for it. So it's good that way. Any questions? Wow. Couldn't have been that good. That's I think I covered everything I wanted to cover with the parachutes. You've seen how you can tie them directly to the shank. You've seen how you can do it to the wing post. You've seen materials that you can use for the wing post. So it's a great pattern. Someone asked me, with the Adams, they asked me, when do I fish the Adams traditional? And I say I still do, especially in broken pocket water. I still fish the traditional Adams, because it's traveling faster than in the run. I use the parachutes in the runs because it's slower. Fish get to see the full body, and when these land on the water, they land soft, so there's no disturbance. Whereas broken water, the disturbance is minimal when that hits the water. So, and that hackle tied vertically instead of horizontally helps keep the fly in the pocket water up higher. So those are the differences that I have between the two patterns. All right. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks, Jerry. You pack a lot of lessons into an hour.
Absolutely
Thanks, Jerry.
fantastic.
All right, everybody. I will be sending out another information for the next one, and it'll still be the fourth Tuesday of the month. All right, everybody.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Take care,
Thank you,
everybody.
Jerry.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
thank you.